Hello there and welcome to some commentary on the end of Endless Space 2. Last time we resurrected the gods, restored the balance, did something or other, but nothing in particular happened. Then we went straight back to war with the Green-Orange Alliance. This time though, we have big ships and we ultimately took them downtown. Now they're in big trouble, we just need to siege them out and out-influence their systems as well to achieve my various war objectives. Here's me achieving something slightly special. We have taken the system with the Academy in it, although we're interrupted by Green trying to get a truce. Sorry, but no. With the Academy under our control, as I mentioned last time, this gives you the ability to monitor heroes, or something to that effect, as it says there. We can see their status. So maybe we can find out where the other factions have their heroes stationed and what they're up to. Not that useful, and I didn't use that information to do anything. Here's a perhaps more important capture. We've taken Green's homeworld. They just sieged them down for ages and then finished them off. That was one of my main objectives, and here's my second main objective, to take Sylphy back, the place that used to belong to me, but Green took it in the previous war. We're getting that back. My attacks there on the orange territory aren't so important, just doing it to have the troops be doing something, I suppose. Here's the big one though, with Gelta under our control, Green's gonna lose tons of their core buildings and trade routes and stuff, and that's just going to hamper them and make sure they're not going to come back after this war. That was the whole goal behind that. Here's my other main propaganda goal, that is to take Kras, the location of Orga, and another location we lost to Green last time. We fight their meager fleet there and it runs away. Somebody's interrupting. It's the light blue faction claiming that we're in trouble and they need to save us. Doesn't appear to be the case, but okay. And then we invade Kras to take it. Here we are, just finishing them off, and I thought, well, that's that. We can end the war just after this. But those thoughts were predicted by my allies, it seems, because everything then gets thrown out the window. As the invasion succeeds, we get a pop-up saying the invasion was cancelled, and here's why. Afterwards, the Green faction decided to accept a truce on our behalf with the light green faction, allowing us to get a whopping 92 money for a bit, which is an irrelevant peace deal. Absolutely terrible negotiations right there. I was about to actually achieve really complete victory, and not only that, someone else in our alliance wants to immediately go to war with Red. So the fact we're in an alliance is hamstringing us here, because if anybody does something, everybody else has to agree and there's no negotiation on it. I was so mad about this, I actually just reloaded the autosave from the previous turn and negotiated the truce myself, so we're not going to change history too much, but by being at the table, I can put in the truce that I get Kras, so at least I get what I wanted out of all of this. After a while we sort the deal, and things end up roughly where they were before, so we're almost Iron Manning it here, but not really. We got the system we wanted. Green are now in big trouble. We have everything around them, so they'll eventually just be within our territory and we can buy their stuff with influence if we want. And the war with Red also went ahead because our allies are enthusiastic about that, I suppose. Red have nothing, so it's really just a case of attacking them to kill them. Since you can't get a peace treaty with them, we don't really have a reason to leave them alive like we do with the other factions, so we'll just kill them off. I was really looking to end the campaign at this point, but we're still pretty far from the victory conditions. The easiest one to get would be supremacy there. We need to take the orange and purple homeworld, and purple control the orange homeworld at the moment, I believe. So win a war with purple, essentially. The thing about that was, I didn't want to actually do it because I was so ready to leave. I was looking more for a, can I just click end turn and then win sort of ending. So I was confident I could just sit back and grab a science victory or something, but it turns out it's not quite as easy as I thought, as we'll get to. Well, along the way, we absolutely annihilate Red. They didn't really have anything, so that's not an achievement. We can then get a truce with them, which will do nothing. Their faction is about to die because they're out of territory, but we can take some of their resources by cheekily trucing out at the end and then negotiating for it, so that's handy. Another negotiation is here with Green, where I'm going to get a peace deal with them to improve our happiness, and as part of the deal, I can get myself another system, Temos. That's a system that's in the lower ring of the galaxy, that's kind of in the middle of our territory, so it makes more sense for us to have it, and we get some of that rare green strategic resource as well, which I happen to need quite a lot of. Unlike with red, leaving green alive somewhere on the map will benefit us because it gives us another peace treaty which buffs not only our happiness but various other things. There are certain buildings that buff stuff based on your number of alliances and peace deals as well. Therefore, we want to try and keep even our former enemies alive, just to be our pets, to make everybody else happy that we didn't quite kill them off. Moving on, we're starting to get towards the ultimate techs in the tech tree, the ones you need to do to get the science victory. And they also provide you with some handy bonuses as well, like that plus 20 happiness everywhere and increased resource production. Can't go wrong with that. In fact, we want to get this one here first, because it makes your science go a bit faster. Might as well do that before the other big techs. We haven't unlocked the other two, just need to get more random things from nearby in the tech tree. We're not really using most of the techs we're unlocking, I'm barely building anything, and we're not upgrading our ships at all because we don't really need to, and I'm more interested in pressing end turn as many times as possible. There was still some drama to get through though. First, we learned that we're about to win the campaign on economy apparently, which you do by generating tons of money. We're actually, again, nowhere near that objective, the game was lying. And while I was checking, it interrupts me with this. Somebody comes into my office claiming it's wartime, and I was pretty annoyed by this because I didn't want it to be wartime. Can't we just stop killing each other for now? Looks like it was Horatio's idea. We actually have the option to leave our alliance in order to get out of the war. This probably would have been the right thing to do, because being in an alliance right now is holding us back simply because the other allies aren't as advanced as us. And when you're in an alliance, it makes the victory conditions harder to make up for it. So if the other players aren't really pulling their weight, ultimately it becomes harder to win for the player. Well, we missed out on an opportunity there, and instead we're just fighting. Looks like Auriga, once again in the crash system, is under attack. Green was already here, perhaps waiting for this opportunity. So this war is very inconvenient for us. However, we already know we vastly outspec the enemy in terms of our ship quality and number. So we just have to go and take them down by waking up all of my dormant fleets and doing the stuff. All of their territory is in our territory right now. So we've already got that on our side. I think this helps us by making our ships regenerate health every turn or something like that. And very quickly, we start to turn the tables. Here we are taking out the enemy fleet over Kras. Went in for a battle, but they just retreated, and that's going to mostly kill them. We can just finish them off sometime later. And the ground troops in our fleet orbiting Kras will then help out with the fight for Auriga and the other planets down below. That will solve that. Here's another large battle against a roaming enemy fleet. This time, they retreat but fail and get entirely deleted as a result. That's probably going to be most of Green's naval strength already out of action, so we've won this war. Another Stellaris type scenario comes up. We're actually pursuing a war. Just means doing a lot of busy work. It's going to happen eventually. The result is inevitable, but the diplomacy in the game doesn't take that into account, so they don't just surrender the second you've really got them on the ropes. We also took out an orange fleet there because we are of course at war with them as well, not that I cared too much about that. We're going to be a bit more harsh against Green this time, and more actively try to take their planets off them. I'm going to hammer them down to be as small as possible, again without actually defeating them because we're benefiting from their existence, at least as a museum exhibit for us. Here's the battle on Kras starting to go our way as we pour in 30,000 plus troops to keep that defense going forever. We'll eventually defeat their ground army, combat width holding us back once again. We're also doing some ground invasions against Orange just to take some of their territory. Not for any particular reason, just something to do I guess. We've got tons of spare troops. Although, while the fighting's going on, a peace treaty potentially comes up here. Somebody's negotiating a truce. Apparently this time I get a choice about whether to not accept it, which is nice, and we don't accept it because I want to continue the war a bit more and then do my own truce where I steal stuff off them. So that brings us to here effectively. We'll skip the rest of it. I'm negotiating with Green to get some resources and to take another of their systems in the deal, which speeds up the process of stealing their stuff. They accept that deal because they are completely screwed, and that's going to end the war quite favourably for us. Green are now down to 2 systems, I think, both in our territory and both easily blockaded or besieged if we need to. I think that's going to be the final state of green right there, and orange still exists somewhere in the very corner of the map as well, but they are just a non-entity. We've taken all of their territory aside from their current home base, which is too far away from anybody to be of any interest. Taking on all of those extra systems, by the way, isn't really going to impact our over-colonization thing, because in the late game you can make a building autonomous administration that makes a system not count towards the over-colonization limit, and we've got a few of those, so we've got plenty of happiness to spare essentially, plus other late game techs and stuff give you more happiness. That's why not only was I taking on extra systems from our enemies, but here I am actually colonizing a new system for the first time in ages, whipped out the old colony ship to build up this inexplicably not colonized already system in the middle of Blue's territory, I think it was, at the bottom. And we can make it go real fast. We're so rich we can buy out the construction of many of the early buildings and just immediately build it up to be somewhat developed right off the bat. Handy, although it makes really no difference to our economy at this stage because we've got to the infinite economy size where we can buy anything. There's nothing in the game that's too expensive for us to do, so making our economy stronger doesn't do anything. I'm just trying to get through the tech tree. We've now made some more progress on that, but still more techs to go. We're jumping now to after there are more techs to go. There I am researching the last of the victory techs. Just a matter of time, took something like 10 to 20 turns, and here we are with all of them. What I thought was that I would win now, but I was too naive, and for a reason I already mentioned earlier. It's because we're in an alliance to some extent, we have joint victory conditions, so me reaching the apex of technology does not achieve the condition. As it says here in this tooltip, we actually need to get 10 of the ultimate techs, so that means some of our allies need to research at least some of them as well. I figured, well, that's not going to happen, and started thinking about doing one of the other victories, but in retrospect I realise you are allowed to give technologies to other factions, so I could have given everything to all of my allies and forced them to the end of the tech tree, and then maybe they would research those victory techs and we'd win quite quickly. Didn't really think of that. Obviously, if I actually wanted to win quickly, I could just go for Supremacy Victory and conquer purple. That would be all it takes. I just really didn't want to do that for some reason. My heart set on some kind of economic victory, or one of the non-military victories I should say. We're about 1/3 of the way to the actual economic victory, which is just for generating tons of money. Now moving on, here's us finishing the tech tree. One thing I hoped would happen was that once you researched everything, there'd be some kind of repeatable research like in Stellaris, or just something you could do with your science production. That doesn't appear to be the case, so if you reach the end of the tech tree, all of your buildings producing science are now just doing nothing. What we could do is go around the planets and delete all of the science buildings, because you have to pay to use them even if they're not actually generating anything for you. We could optimize in that way. Well, I wasn't up for optimizing in that way. I did have most of my systems start to automate and spam out money buildings at this stage in the campaign, and we're now going to skip like an hour ahead when we went through a period of exponential economic growth and went from being 1/3 of the way to the economy goal to actually having it. I didn't expect to get there because I wasn't keeping track of it, figuring we'd never get there in any sort of good time. Well, that exponential growth creeps up on you, and I didn't finish building the Wonders, which was the victory I was actually going for. So there you go, we just win, we're so rich that everybody else just has to do whatever we say or something, I don't even know. Well, it's technically the Alliance as a whole that's so rich rather than just us. Now curiously, after this, we get a cutscene that implies the whole God resurrecting thing, the return of the Lost, is actually happening now after the campaign. I figured it was happening, or it already happened earlier when we finished that quest related to it, and it showed a cutscene that was very similar to this one. This one is actually slightly different, like it's the same shots from different angles as the earlier cutscene. Not quite sure what's going on, but at least now we've done it. Now we've summoned the Lost, some big things start glowing in the sky, the galaxy now has eyes. That's probably a bad thing. Well, we've done it. And then it gives us this Volta's specific ending, I guess. There wasn't really much going on with us as like a species or a plot related to our faction. We were just looking for somewhere to set up shop, and we did. That somewhere was basically everywhere, as it turns out. We've taken over everything, and now we're super rich. We know everything that you can possibly know, apparently, and we're just chilling. And now the good news is that we get a good old-fashioned post-game graph. So let's see what's going on with these various lines. We're the blue line, and broadly speaking, it's going pretty well for us. You can see the exponential growth happening towards the end when everything just shoots up in the final 50 turns or so, when I was just spamming through the turns, building constantly, and it all went pretty well. And this is where we start to speculate how far back on the line was our victory inevitable. In many of the categories we were ahead of everybody else quite early on, especially some important ones like production, which relate to your economic generation, and in research there, nobody was even close to us. We absolutely obliterated all the factions for research. That approval graph, well, that's a very clean graph, isn't it? We all know what's going on right there. I think we're somewhere along the top because our people liked us quite a lot. And there's expansion, we controlled most of the stuff most of the time, had most of the heroes as well, and the biggest military. You can see on this graph the point when I sort of specced into military. That's when Green's line suddenly shoots down just after mine shot up. That was when they stole my stuff. I decided to actually get some ships, and we ended up getting way more ships than anybody else, and then just dominating everything. As we saw. Not that we dominated them with the ships, of course. We could have, if I wanted to click the mouse. I guess I wanted to click it in the corner rather than the middle of the screen, so I went for the end turn until you win strategy. And that was that. You get this little Empire Chronicles thing, as it calls it. I think it's just going to be a list of every game you've played and what score you got and where you came. So there we go, we've now played one game of Endless Space 2, and we won. It shows who your allies were, what your score was, not sure what that means, and some other miscellaneous details. I think we need something like in Civ 5 that I just finished recently, where it takes your score and it puts you on a chart of what your score could have been, so you know like what's a good score relatively speaking. We have a number associated with that save game, and that was that, I suppose. So there you go, we come to the end of Endless Space 2. I was kind of disappointed by the second half of this game. Once the plots went away and it turned out they weren't going anywhere, there's nothing after that. It's just a very generic 4X game that concludes in the inevitable but slow way of most 4X games, where it really needs to stir something up. It doesn't even do any kind of endgame event like some do to make things be a little bit special towards the end. I wanted the gods to really destroy the galaxy or something when we summoned them, but indeed they just sat back, so did we, and we became so rich that history is over. Something, something, something. Well done to the Volters, you've done it. You've got Auriga and Auriga 2.0, much more than you had before, so a successful project overall. I think I'll come back and play Endless Space 2 again another time as one of the other factions. They all seem to have something unique going for them, and there's a rumour going around that some factions don't require you to even play the game very much, which I'm always for. So I'll check them out and see what's going on with that. Just not right now, since I literally just finished this game. I'll play something else and come back to this another time. As for what that will be, I don't actually know. I was thinking of not playing anything for a bit and sort of revamping some of my old series into compilations and just putting them on another channel to see what the algorithm does about that. Well, I'll talk more about that in the future. There's a preview of something coming for those of you loyal enough to reach this deep into the end of a series. Something else will appear one day. Comment to have some influence over that, because this time I might actually see the comments before I start recording the next thing. See you next time. Thanks for watching this OffyD gameplay commentary. Check out the playlists on my channel for more.